I live? Let me see here. Alrighty. Okay. Everything seems to be good. We'll get a couple more people here into the live. Let's see what's going on here. Is everything well? Alrighty. I have everything going. It seems to be pretty well. Sorry, guys. This is kind of my first time using a couple of these programs. So, excuse me if I'm a little new to this whole thing. Here we go. So, how are we doing? How do I see live like my... There we go. Alrighty, so basically what I want to start doing with all these live streams is having you guys basically join me. Let's see here. So that we can start doing things. Right now, I guess this is going to be like a book club thing. I'm trying to adjust all this stuff. Here we go. Beltran Book Club. And book club Outwitting the Devil by All right, so basically, I am just going to be live streaming. Today is Tuesdays, and on Tuesdays, I want to go on ahead and do like a little bit of a book club thing where, I have a bunch of books, and there are a bunch that I haven't read for whatever reason. Either I'm busy or, whatever the case may be. Or sometimes, literally, I buy like the physical book, but I end up listening to it through an audio book or whatever the case may be. And Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil, is one of the books that I've been wanting to read for a while now. And I just got it from good old Amazon a couple of weeks ago, actually. And I haven't even opened it. There's no crease. Look at that. So I've heard of the audiobook version of this. audiobooks are great. They're a great way to pass the time. But ultimately, when I'm audiobooking, I'm also doing other things. I'm mowing the lawn. I'm going to the gym. I'm, walking around, whatever. And while I'm listening, I'm also not listening, right? What I enjoy about sort of reading is the fact that you have to put your full concentration into it. And I figure, why not make like a live stream and see how many other people are also reading this book or similar books or whatever the case may be. We get together and we make ourselves, a little bit of a book club going that is, a little different from my real estate and my triathlon stuff. Basically, I just want to make sort of videos that I'd be interested in if I was like a viewer of a YouTube channel. Might not be the catchiest thing ever, right? But I find it interesting. I wish someone had like a book club with me because there are a lot of books that I love reading. Unfortunately, I can't talk about them with other people. Or when I do talk about them, you can very quickly notice that they never read them. So, if you're interested in basically just, I don't know, reading a book, whatever the case may be, asking questions, yeah, I'd like to have you here every Tuesday. I'd like to do this. I know I started a little bit early. Maybe I should start this at like 8 p.m. I'll look at my analytics and see how many people are actually watching, if people actually watch, if this is something that people want. So I guess we'll go from there. Right now, this is my first time using the system called Riverside. I'm seeing that like it pops up with like live and a little logo of Riverside at the side. I really don't like that, but it is what it is. It didn't let me upload everything onto the YouTube page, so if you'll excuse me, I quickly want to go ahead and write down that this is my book club and that this is the book that I'll be reading. If you want to know, for next week, I want to read What Would the Rockefellers Do? Infinite Baking. Love it. Next, after that, the following week, I guess fortnight, it's going to be Choose Your Enemies Wisely. I've read this book before, but I only got about halfway. I want to finish it. And then, just to get out of the monotony of business, I also want to read Brad Meltzer's The Lightning Rod. I really love Brad Meltzer's books. I know that that's not real estate or business related, but once again, like I said, I want to make this about just books in general. Yes, I have interests outside of real estate and all that stuff. So, okay, sorry. Once again, let me quickly upload all this good stuff and we'll go from there. My space bar. I now understand why there are sort of podcast or live streaming producers for all this. This is a lot of interesting work in terms of like having a streaming program, having it come over to YouTube, whatever the case. This is the funnest thing ever, right? Okay, so once again, you can Q&A, although because I'm using Riverside, I don't see where your chats are. Okay. Live stream chats. There we go. Okay, cool. Got those. And okay, and it's recording at 720p, which I guess is fine, but I have a 4K camera. I'm starting really not to like sort of these streaming websites. I have an overkill of a camera. I guess that just means I have to pay more in order to stream at 4K because it's clearly not letting me. All right, is there a way to see how many people are on stream? I mean, I doubt there are that many. I mean, I'm a pretty boring person, but let's see here. Chat, brand, what is that? Okay. Text, media, layout. Okay. No. Script, presentation, leave, stop. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this whole live streaming thing is, it's fun. Don't get me wrong, because I can create a lot of content very quickly. However, I just hate the technology behind it. Because I don't know what's going on. Real-time analytics, maybe? How do I know? Okay. How long have I been streaming? 11 minutes. Okay. This is looking pretty good. All right, so Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil. Fear is the tool of a man-made devil. Self-confident faith in oneself is both the man-made weapon which defeats this devil and the man-made tool which builds a triumphant life. And it is more than that. It is the link to the irresistible forces of the universe which stand behind a man who does not believe in failure and defeat as being anything but temporary experiences. And that is Napoleon Hill, guys. All right, so just so everyone knows, this is annotated by Sharon Lecter. I'm not going to read her annotations. I'm assuming, I don't know much. I haven't read, like I said, I just listened to the audiobook, but without the annotations. If you've read anything about Napoleon Hill, yeah, he wrote Think and Grow Rich, which was a phenomenal book. However, he himself was a freaking loser. And I think he actually, if I'm not mistaken, in the annotations, they actually kind of talk about that. How even though he wrote this book, he was still like not practicing what he was preaching, which I guess happens to a lot of people, right? Overall, it could happen to the best of us. I mean, there are times where I'm sort of talking about real estate in a hypothetical way that, you know, I haven't necessarily in the moment experienced or whatever the case may be. But I could see where this is coming from, and I'm assuming that's what Napoleon Hill was trying to do. However, we're all creatures of habit, right? Okay. So my first meeting with Andrew Carnegie, which actually, you know what? I actually like to go down the table of contents, right? Chapter 1, my first meeting with Andrew Carnegie. Chapter 2, the new world is revealed to me. Chapter 3, a strange interview with the devil. Chapter 4, drifting with the devil, which is actually one of my favorite sections when I was listening. I think I rewound that quite a bit. The confession continues. Chapter 5, Chapter 6, hypnotic rhythm, which I guess is like the controversial part of this book. So be it. Chapter 7, Seeds of Fear. Chapter 8, Definitiveness of Purpose. Chapter 9, Education and Religion. Chapter 10, Self-Discipline. Chapter 11, Learning from Adversity. Chapter 12, Environment, Time, Harmony, Caution. And of course, a summary at the very end. Yeah, all that other stuff is just Sharon Lecter interjecting her thoughts, which is cool, I guess, but it's just not what I want to read. All right, so my first meeting with Carnegie. For more than a quarter of a century, did the stream drop? Hold on real quick, guys. I'm so sorry. There's got to be a better way to live stream than whatever the hell this is. Is this the live control room? Okay. Concurrent viewers, concurrent. Okay. All right. For more than a quarter of a century, my major purpose has been that if isolating or and organizing into a philosophy of achievements, the cause of both failure and success, with the object of being helpful to others who have neither the inclination nor the opportunity to engage in this form of research. My labor began in 1908 as a result of an interview that I had with the late Andrew Carnegie. Frankly, I told Mr. Carnegie that I wished to enter law school and that I had conceived the idea of paying my way through school by interviewing successful men and women, finding out how they came by their success, and writing stories of my discoveries for magazines. At the end of our first visit, Mr. Carnegie asked whether or not I possessed enough courage to carry out a suggestion he wished to offer me. I replied that courage was about all I did have, and that I was prepared to do my very best to carry out any suggestion he cared to offer. Like I said, Napoleon Hill was a little bit of a interesting character while he was writing Think and Grow Rich. All right, sorry, I'll go back to reading. He then said, "Your idea of writing stories about men and women who are successful is commendable as far as it goes, and I have no intention of trying to discourage you from carrying out your purpose. But I must tell you that if you wish to be of enduring service not only to those now living, but to posterity as well, you can do so if you will take the time to organize all the causes and failures as well as all of the causes of success. There are millions of people in this world who have not the slightest conception of the cause of success and failure. The schools and colleges teach particularly everything except the principles of individual achievement. They require young men and women to spend from 4 to 8 years acquiring abstract knowledge, but do not teach them what to do with this knowledge after they get it. The world is in need of a particular understandable philosophy of achievement organized from a factual knowledge gained from the experience of men and women in the great university of life. In the entire field of philosophy, I find nothing which even remotely resembles the sort of philosophy which I have in mind. We have few philosophers who are capable of teaching men and women the art of living. It seems to me that there is an opportunity which should challenge the ambitious young man of your type. But ambition alone is not enough for this task which I have suggested. The one who undertakes it must have courage and tenacity. The job will require at least 20 years of continuous effort, during which the one who undertakes it will have to earn his living from some other source, because this sort of research is never profitable at the outset, and generally those who have contributed to civilization through work of this nature have had to wait hundreds of years or so after their own funerals to receive recognition of their labor. Interesting, right? Kind of going into that whole philosophy of like, do you work for free? What are the implications of that? What comes of that? Should you work for free? I know that a lot of people, when you say that, they freak out. It's like, why should I work for free? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. This is why I love reading these types of books. You know. Anyway, I'm reading at a little bit of a slower pace. In my head, I read much faster, but when it comes to saying this out loud, I guess because I'm hearing my own voice in a weird way, I tend to stumble. So I apologize for that. Obviously, I will get better as I go forward and read more books on camera like this to a live stream audience of 3 concurrent viewers. No one's watching, but I guess that kind of goes into that whole like, a lot of this work isn't going to pay off for a while. Give me one moment. Alrighty. If you undertake this if you undertake this job, you should you should interview not only the few who have succeeded, but the many who have failed. You should carefully analyze many thousands of people who have been classed as failures. And I mean by the term failures, men and women who come to the closing chapters of their life disappointed because they did not attain the goal which they had set their hearts upon achieving. As inconsistent as it may seem, you will learn more about how to succeed from the failures than you will from the so-called successes. They will teach you what not to do. Along towards the end of your labor, if you carry it through successfully, you will make a discovery which may be great, which may be a great surprise to you. You will discover that the cause of success is not something separate and apart from the man, that it is a force so intangible in nature that the majority of men never recognize it, a force which might be properly called other self. Noteworthy is the fact that this is the other self that Noteworthy is the fact that this other self seldom exerts its influence or makes itself known, excepting at times of unusual emergency, when men are forced through adversity and temporary defeat to change their habits and to think their way out of difficulty. My experiences taught me that a man is never, my experiences taught me that a man is never quite so near success as when that which he calls failure has overtaken him. For it is on occasion of this sort that he is forced to think. If he thinks accurately and with persistence, he discovers the so-called failure usually is nothing more than a signal to rearm himself with a new plan or purpose. Most real failures are due to limitations which men set up in their own minds. If they had the courage to go one step further, they would discover their error. Yeah, love it. Hold on real quick, just making sure that this live stream is going. Excellent. You know, oddly enough, I preferred to stream directly through YouTube. I know that's probably not the best way of doing so, but I like it. All right, that is beginning life anew. Mr. Carnegie's speech reshaped my entire life, implanted in my mind a burning purpose which has driven me ceaselessly, and this despite the fact that I had but a vague idea as to what he meant by the term other self. During my labor of research in the cause of failure and success, I've had the privilege of analyzing more than 25,000 men and women who were rated as failures and over 500 who were classed as successful. Many years ago, I caught my first glimpse of that other self Mr. Carnegie had mentioned. The discovery came, as he said it would, as the result of two major turning points in my life, which constituted emergencies that forced me to think my way out of difficulties such as I had never before experienced. I wish it were possible to describe the discovery without the use of the personal pronoun, but this is impossible because I came through personal experiences from which it cannot be separated. To give you the complete picture, I shall have to go back to the first of these two major turning points and bring you up to the discovery step by step. The research necessary for accumulation of the data from which the 17 principles of achievement and the 30 causes of failure were organized required years of labor. I had reached the false conclusion that my task of organizing a complete philosophy for personal achievement had been completed. far from having been completed. My work had merely begun. I had erected the skeleton of philosophy by organizing the 17 principles of achievement and the 30 major causes of failure, but that skeleton had to be covered with the flesh of application and experience. Moreover, it had given a soul it had been given a soul through which it might inspire men and women to meet obstacles without going down under them. The soul, which had yet to be added, as I discovered later, became available only after my other self had its appearance through two major turning points in my life, revolving to my resolving to turn my attention and whatever talents I might possess into monetary returns through business and professional channels. I decided to go into the profession of advertising. And I became the advertising manager of La Salle Expansion University of Chicago. La Salle, whatever. Everything went along beautifully for 1 year, at the end of which I was seized by a violent dislike for my job and resigned. I then entered the chain store business with the former president of La Salle Extension University and became the president of the Betsy Ross Candy Company. Unfortunate, or what seemed to me at the time to be unfortunate, disagreement with the business associate disengaged me from that undertaking. The lure of advertising still was in my blood, and I tried again to give expression to it by organizing a school of advertising and salesmanship as a part of Bryant and Stratton Business College. The enterprise was sailing smoothly, and we were making money rapidly when the United States entered World War I. In response to an inner urge which no word can describe, I walked away from the school and entered the service of the United States government under the President Woodrow Wilson's personal direction, leaving a perfectly sound business and to disintegrate. On the Armistice Day in 1918, I began the publication of the Golden Rule magazine, despite the fact that I did not have a penny of capital. The magazine grew rapidly and soon gained a nationwide circulation of nearly 500,000, ending its first year's business with a profit of $3,156. I mean, okay, so I need to know how much $3,100 is very quickly. Inflation calculator. Boom. 19, 18, 31, 56. Calculate. So he made a profit of 70, what is that? $72,467, which I guess not that bad. Although, according to the book, for proper perspective, 1918 represents 45,000 based on consumer price index average of the labor and statistics using nominal GDP per capita tables. Yep. Interesting. So, not the biggest profit margin, but not bad, right? $72,000. Who knows how many articles he wrote? It's a matter of checking that out. Anyway, some years I learned from an experienced publisher that no man experienced in the publication and distribution of national magazines would think of starting such a magazine with less than $500,000 of capital. The Golden Rule magazine and I were destined to part to part company. The Golden Magazine and I were destined to part company. The more we succeeded, the more discontented I became, until finally, due to the accumulation of petty annoyance caused by business associates, and I made them a present. I made them a present of the magazine and stepped out. I made them a present of the magazine and stepped out. That's weird. Though that move perhaps Through that move, perhaps I tossed a small fortune over my shoulder. Next, I organized a training school for salesmen. My first assignment was to train a sales army of 3,000 people into a chain company store, of which I received $10 for each salesman who went through my class. Within 6 months, my work had netted me a little over $30,000. Success, as far as money was concerned, was crowning my efforts with abundance. Again, I became fidgety inside. I was not happy. It became more obvious every day that no amount of money would ever make me happy. Without the slightest reasonable excuse for my actions, I stepped out and gave up a business from which I might easily have earned a healthy salary. My friend and business associate thought I was crazy, and they were not backward about saying so. Frankly, I was inclined to agree with them, but there seemed nothing I could do about it. I was seeking happiness, and I had not found it. At least, that is the only explanation I could offer for my unusual actions. What man really knows himself? That was during the late fall of 2020 of That was during the late fall of 1923. I found myself stranded in Columbus, Ohio, without funds, or worse still, without a plan of which to work my way out of this difficulty. It was the first time in my life that I had actually been stranded because of lack of funds. Many times previously, I had found money to be rather shy, but never before had I failed to get what I needed for my personal conveniences. The experience stunned me. I seemed totally at sea as to what I could do or should do. I thought of dozens of plans by which I might solve my problems, but dismissed them all as being either impractical or impossible to achieve. I felt like one who was lost in a jungle without a compass. Every attempt I made to work my way through Every attempt I made to work my way brought me back to the original starting point. For nearly 2 months, I suffered with the worst of all human ailments, indecision. I knew the 17 principles of personal achievement, but what I did not know was how to apply them. Without knowing it, I was facing one of those emergencies in my life from which Mr. Carnegie had told me men sometimes discover their other selves. My distress was so great that it never occurred to me to sit down and analyze its cause, seek its cure. Interesting. Where am I at? Defeat is converted into victory. One afternoon, I reached a decision through which I had found the way out of my difficulty. I had a feeling that I wanted to get out into the open spaces of the country where I could get a breath of fresh air and think. I began to walk. I had gone 7 or 8 miles when I felt myself brought suddenly to a standstill. For several minutes, I stood there, as if I had been glued to the tracks. Everything around me went dark. I could hear the loud sound of energy. I could hear the loud sound of some form of energy which was vibrating at a very high rate. Then my nerves became quiet, my muscles relaxed, and a great calmness came over me. The atmosphere began to clear, and as it did, I received a command from within which came in the form of a thought. As near as I had described it, the command was so clear and distinct that I could not misunderstand it. In substance, it said, "The time has come for you to complete the philosophy of achievement which you began at Carnegie's suggestion. Go back home at once and begin transferring the data you have gathered from your own mind to written manuscripts. My other self had awakened." Sounds like a drug trip to me, but, whatever. For a few minutes I was frightened. The experience was unlike anything I had ever undergone. I turned and walked rapidly until I reached home. As I approached the house, I saw the 3 little boys looking out of the window of our house at our neighbor's children, who were dressing a Christmas tree in the house next door. Then I recalled that it was Christmas Eve. Moreover, I recalled with a feeling of deep distress, such as I had never known before, that there would be no Christmas tree at our house. The look of disappointment on the faces of my children reminded me painfully of that fact. I went into the house, sat down with my typewriter, and began at once to reduce to writing the discoveries I had made concerning the cause of success and failure. As I placed my first sheet of paper into the typewriter, I was interrupted by the same strange feeling which had come over me out in the country a few hours before. And this thought flashed into my head: your mission in life is to complete the world's first philosophy of individual achievements. You have been trying in vain to escape your task. Each effort have brought you failure. You are seeking happiness. Learn the lesson once and forever, that you will find happiness only by helping others to find it. You've been a stubborn student. You had to be cured of your stubbornness through disappointment. Within a few years from now, the whole world will start through an experience which will place millions of people in the philosophy which you had been directed to complete. Your big opportunity to find happiness by rendering useful services will have come. Go to work and do not stop until you have completed and published the manuscripts which you have begun. I was conscious of having arrived at last at the end of life's rainbow, and it was happy. Doubt makes its appearance. The spell, if the experience may be so called, passed away. I began to write shortly thereafter. My reason suggested to me that I was embarking upon a fool's mission. The idea of a man who was down and almost out presumed to write a philosophy of personal achievement seemed so ludicrous that I laughed hilariously, perhaps scornfully. I squirmed in my chair, ran my fingers through my hair. I tried to create an alibi that would justify me in my own mind in taking the sheet of paper out of the typewriter before I had really began to write. But the urge to continue was stronger, and the desire that was stronger than the desire to quit. I became reconciled to my task and went ahead. Looking backwards now, in the light of all that happened, I can see that those minor experiences of adversity through which I had passed were among the most fortunate. I can't read it like this. There we go. Where was I? Most fortunate and profitable of all of my experiences. They were blessings in disguise because they forced me to continue to work, which finally brought me an opportunity to make myself more useful to the world than I might have been had I succeeded in any previous plan or purpose. For almost 3 months, I worked on the manuscript, completing them during the early parts of 1924. As soon as they had been completed, I felt myself again being lured by the desire to go back into the great American game of business. Succumbing to the lure, I purchased the Metropolitan Business College. Succumbing to the lure, I purchased the Metropolitan Business College of Cleveland, Ohio, and began to lay plans for increasing its capacity. By the end of 1924, we had developed and expanded by adding new courses until we were doing a business nearly double the I did not wait for the hour time limit to expire, but immediately got into my automobile and drove down to the home of relatives in the mountains of West Virginia, where I remained until the murderers had been placed in jail. That experience came well within the category described by Mr. Carnegie as an emergency that forced me to think. For the first time in my life, I knew the pain of constant fear. My experience of a few years before in Columbus had filled my mind with doubt and temporary indecision, but this one had filled it with fear in which it seemed unable to remove. During that time that I was in hiding and seldom left the house at night, and when I did step out, I kept my hand on an automatic pistol in my pocket with the safety catch unlatched for immediate action. If a strange automobile stopped in front of the house where I was hiding, I went into the basement and carefully scrutinized its occupants through the basement window. After some months of this sort of experience, my nerves began to crack. My courage had completely left me, the ambitions of which had hardened me during the long years of labor in my search for the cause of failure and success also had departed. Whoa. How long have I been on stream? 46 minutes. I think the audio version is about 5 hours and like a half, so there's no way that I'm going to be able to get through through this entire book in 5.5 hours of streaming. I don't have time to stream for 5 hours. What I will say is that I'm going to keep reading this book, and we can talk a little bit about it before next week I get started on what the Rockefellers would do. In the meantime, let's talk about the news. Let's what's out there? What's going on right now? Who's out there? Any real estate deals, whatever the case may be. There aren't that many viewers. There are 3 concurrent viewers. I'll take it. I will take it for what it is. I will say, live streaming is a lot of fun. I enjoy this thoroughly. I wish these programs were a little bit easier. I have to figure out how Riverside would work. But yeah, as far as it goes, I think I have to take care of a couple things later on this evening, but I'm beginning to realize that I'm not liking this streaming setup. I think I'm just going to stream exclusively with YouTube, because I'm not gonna, I don't Twitch stream, I don't Facebook stream, I don't do any of that other stuff. There's a huge possibility that I'm not gonna bring in other people into these sort of live streams. Will I do podcasts or something? Yeah, that's a little bit different. But in terms of live streaming, I don't think I'm going to do this with other people here as much as I would like to. Anyway. Very quickly here. Let's go on ahead and talk about the news. Big Beautiful Bill passed. I don't know what's in it. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. What I'm going to dive into is it good for real estate? At the end of the day, that's all I really care about. I know that within these next couple days, we're going to know if interest rates have gone up or down or stayed the same. Hopefully they go down. But we'll see what the markets do in that particular regard. So the next thing, I guess, is, I've been debating about which Ironman I want to do. I actually have couple of things. Let's see, can I share screen? Would that be cool? No, probably not. Iron Man. Let's check out the races. Alrighty. Iron Man. Iron Man 70.3. So I really want to do another Ironman triathlon. I realize I am not in shape for them. However, I'm still willing to do them. Why? I have no clue, man. Ironman triathlons are just the best. I really want to go back to Thun, Switzerland. I want to conquer that mountain, but frankly, I am not ready for that. Ironman Des Moines, Iowa was a disappointment. I really wish I would have gotten a little bit further than I did. However, it's cool, you can't win them all. Can I do screen? Operating system. Huh. Looks like I can share a screen. I've got a couple things. Alrighty. Well, I guess that's it. That's actually about as far as I was planning on doing today. I went on ahead and hit the 51-minute mark. I don't think there were that many people watching this time around, however. Yeah. I think this is gonna be it. Let's see, where are we? 51 minutes, yep. Alrighty, well, at least I was able to try out all these programs. Like I said, this is gonna get a lot better as I'm able to work these programs out a lot better. I will catch you guys in the next one. Guess that's it. Peace. Let me know what you guys think about Winning the Devil in next week's AlexBeltran book club. Right on. Take it easy. Bye.